During the chaos of the Trump years, the big running joke was that the New York Times kept reporting about UFOs, and that was still one of the least shocking news events during that chaotic time. And so how did you get, as a long-time reporter for the Times, how did you get into the UFO beat, and how did you get UFOs on the front page of the New York Times in 2020?
Well, 2017 it started.
Right. But 2020 was the big gasp reveal.
Yeah. Well, we got it in 2020 because we had broken the ground in 2017 with that big front page story about ATIP, the secret Pentagon unit that was investigating UFOs that no one knew about till we broke the story on the front page of the Times. After that, we had some follow-ups, including in 2020, where we talked about close encounters, close calls, Navy jets almost colliding with some of these UFOs. And finally, we kind of broke the story that Congress or committees in Congress were briefed on materials, okay, quote. Very difficult story to get, and we can talk about that in more detail. And that was in the height of the Trump craziness, breaking that story. So, but that was really the trajectory. We did a number of stories starting in 2017.
And how did your colleagues react to you working on these stories all these years?
Well, we're mixed. We were the butt of some jokes, some joking in the Washington Bureau, particularly Helene Cooper, who collaborated with Leslie Kean and me on the first story. She was and is the Pentagon correspondent, so she took some heat from her colleagues. They would go, da 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 da, when she would pass in the newsroom. But when she showed some of the videos that we had gotten from the Navy that showed these UFOs, and we actually broke, the news of these videos in the New York Times, when she pulled some of those up on her computer, everybody, in the Washington Bureau crowded around, and they were mesmerized. They wanted to see that. Oh my God, what's that? Oh my! So I think basically we had got a lot of support from our colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough, taboo subject, and you could just define for our listeners, what exactly are UFOs?
Well, or UAP is really what the Pentagon likes to call them, unidentified aerial phenomena. UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And people say, do you believe in UFOs? You don't have to believe in UFOs. They're unidentified. There's something up there that they can't identify. And some of them, a number can be explained, various natural phenomena, clouds, all kinds of things, but a great number of them cannot. And the last big Pentagon, investigation, Operation Blue Book, which ended in 1969, which concluded, that there was nothing to see here, but there were 701 cases left on the table that they couldn't explain. So, add to those 701 cases then, thousands since then, and we're left with a big mystery. These things, and now the Pentagon says that they're real. I mean, we don't know what they are. Nobody knows what they are, where they come from, what they want, what intelligence, if any, is behind the wheel. But at least now the government is saying, well, these things have a physicality. They're real. They're not a hallucination. They're not a mistake. They're not a fraud or a hoax. So in that sense, we've come a long way.
A recent government report said that it can't be ruled out that they're not aliens. From all the reporting you've done, all the conversations you had, how likely do you think some of these UFOs are aliens?
Well, that's a question that the government, it just won't address, by the way. They don't go there, and I understand that. It's one step at a time, and it is pure speculation. But if you figure that the aerodynamics of these objects are not like anything seen on Earth, that we, the American government, the experts, don't believe that any earthly adversary is capable of this kind of advanced technology. I mean, these things had no, aerodynamic surfaces, no wings, no tails, no propellers, no exhaust, no sound, no rivets, it just defied explanation. And certainly these objects seemed not to be anything that anyone on Earth was capable of in terms of their speed, their maneuverability, their ability to disappear and appear, operate even underwater in some cases. They seem to go into the water and out of the water, not just the atmosphere. So then you say, well, who could be behind these things? I mean, that's pure speculation. But one of the possibilities would have to be that there's some kind of alien intelligence operating them, either robotically or on board. But I mean, you cannot exclude that possibility, obviously. So that's where we're left. I mean, nobody has the proof. Nobody has any evidence. Whatever might be behind these things has not been caught on any recording device. So it remains a mystery.
When I bring this topic up, as I like to do, I always point folks to your reporting and all the work that you've done in this area. I get the pushback, well, if there is intelligent life, if there are such a thing as aliens among us visiting Earth, what would an advanced intelligence possibly want with us?
Yeah, that's a good question. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist who was the subject of the book I wrote, when he was asked this question in different ways, he had a good answer. He said, I'm a human psychiatrist. I'm not an alien psychiatrist. I cannot figure out their motivations, what they, might be thinking, or why did they appear in this famous episode we can talk about in Zimbabwe. In 1995, there was some kind of a landing, according to 60 school kids who saw it, but no adults saw it at the time. So people kept saying, well, how come no adults saw this? 60 kids at recess all saw this craft land and two beings, as they described it later, and they drew pictures, and all the kids sort of agreed. I mean, not exactly, it wasn't a story that they all subscribed to, but they told us similar accounts, and these were very innocent kids. They weren't, conniving together to make up a story. And when they went to John Mack and said, well, how come no adults, the aliens picked the one time when the kids were at recess and no adults were present, how do you explain that? And he said, look, I'm not an alien psychiatrist. I can't explain these things. It's just what the kids reported. So what they want from us, if their technology is so superior, are they curious the way we are curious about animals, inferior forms of life that they would like to study? Who knows? But as I said, the important thing is that these objects, forget about aliens because we don't know about aliens, but the objects themselves are real. So there are things in the atmosphere that seem to be under intelligent control that we cannot explain. That much we now think we know. So, why they do it this way, why they're here, all good questions.
And how likely is it that it could be China, Russia, or Israel or any other country?
Yeah, very unlikely. I mean, to the point of impossible. I mean, again, based on there are drones around. We know that. There's some very sophisticated technology flying around. The balloon episode that we recently, were privy to, the Chinese, quote, weather balloon, surveillance balloon, whatever it was, floating into our, atmosphere territory. So there is some sophisticated technology out there, that's for sure. But that doesn't explain the kind of things that pilots like Dave Fravor, a very highly decorated Navy pilot, and Alex Dietrich, his wing person, but they encountered these things, and they were the most sophisticated, technologically gifted observers we have in this country, the recipient of millions of dollars of training and expertise. And they saw these things, Tic Tacs they called them, and that did not seem possible that they could be Chinese technology or Russian or Iranian or Israeli, just not possible given what we know of the physics and the ability we have or we understand to the way objects move. It just does not seem possible. So that's why the experts that we've talked to at the New York Times, that the New York Times has talked to in the Pentagon, for our reporting, have all said that it is unlikely to the point of impossibility that at least all these things can be explained by earthly adversaries.
Because they tend to defy the laws of physics as we know them.
as we understand them, right? I mean, physicists will tell you you can't defy the laws of physics. Those are the natural laws. But it's as we understand the laws of physics. Physics, laws. I mean, before Einstein, we thought physics took certain forms. After Einstein, we realized it took other forms. So we may not just understand all the possibilities. You'd have to be a moron to think we understand everything there is to know about physics right now, that there's nothing left to find out. No serious person will tell you that. There's a lot we still don't understand, a huge amount, obviously. So there may be things that could explain the movements, the operations of these objects, but we don't understand that yet.
It's certainly a Galileo moment that challenges the conventional thinking and deals with all sorts of skepticism out there.
Absolutely.
One explanation I heard from a researcher at the Pentagon, or had been at the Pentagon for some time, one theory is that the intelligent life form driving these extraordinary machines, crafts, whatever you want to call them, one of the reasons why they want nothing to do with us, it's the same sort of question. If you were to go back in time and suddenly find yourself among a bunch of, I would say, like Templar knights during the Crusades, or people are being, burned alive, and just the savagery of human beings, basically, that this other life form is just so advanced compared to us that they don't really want to mess with us. So, like you use the animal reference, but it's also a time traveler not wanting to spook the people of the Middle Ages at risk of, being harmed, being burned at the stake or whatever. And also this person touched on the fact saying that there's a lot of interest around water. With these crafts, there's a lot of sightings around water. There tends to be with some of the crafts. And that there's a theory that maybe Earth is just a far-flung fueling station for them to go to other places.
Yeah, there was a lot in that question, Andrea.
Well, this is like a therapeutic conversation for me. I can finally talk to somebody that's...
You say, well, they want nothing to do with us, and yet whoever they are here. They're all over the place. They've been cited in every country on Earth, just about every continent, to all kinds of people for a very long time. So if they don't want anything to do with us, why don't they just stay away from Earth? But there's something that draws these things, to our area of the galaxy, of the universe. Why they're here? I mean, that's a good question. They certainly have not gone out of their way to announce themselves, or I shouldn't say that. They have announced themselves, but they haven't made themselves transparent or clear what they want, whatever it is. They haven't, introduced themselves to our leaders, as far as we know. Although there's a lot of stories out there about, strange collaborations with American government, which you can find on the internet. We can try to unpack that. There's certainly no evidence of that. There's just stories. But anyway, that's really one of the mysteries. Why, if they don't want anything to do with us, why are they here? What do they want? If they're so advanced that they can, master this kind of technology, what do they want with us? Maybe there's something that, missing from them that they're looking for in us.
Well, did John Mack get close to answering that?
He didn't get close. He raised a lot of good questions. What he did is he compiled a lot of data from people who consulted him. I don't even want to call them patients because there was nothing wrong with them, okay? But hundreds of people told their stories to John Mack about encounters that they believed they had, and not only believed, but that in some cases third parties confirmed they had with these beings, whatever you want to call them. So he compiled a lot of data. He never figured it out. And all he did was provide a kind of a good database of experiences that people recounted to him, both consciously and sometimes under deep, under relaxation techniques. He wasn't a big fan of hypnosis like Bud Hopkins and other people, but Anyway, he got all these accounts, and they were very, very similar accounts. They were not similar to the point that, everybody was telling one story that they kind of agreed on, but there was a similarity to the stories that convinced him that they had all experienced something that could not be explained. But in the end, again, you got to come away from this phenomenon with great humility. It remains unexplained.